warriors once, those who answered the call when their country needed them most. They've seen the cost of freedom, carried the weight of brotherhood, and now they carry a new mission. These are their voices, their memories, their stories. This is where it begins, introducing the veteran scene.
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, fellow veterans, spouses, and caregivers. It is an honor for me to participate in this project and to recognize the service, sacrifice, and promise of veterans. My name is Len Maza, born and raised in the Midwest and coming from a long list of military service members. All my uncles had served. My dad was a merchant marine, and I watched my older brother enter the U.S. Air Force in 1968. After running out of college funds in 1969, my student deferment 2S had expired, and I immediately was 1A, draftable. The draft had filtered through the area, collecting many of the young men. After training, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, they call it Fort Lost in the Woods, and then flown out to Fort Ord, California for AIT, Advanced Infantry Training. I was flown to Benoit Air Base, South Vietnam, where in turn I went to the 90th Replacement Battalion initially for further orders. In Long Binh, Vietnam, was the largest ammunition depot in South Vietnam. We were constantly being mortared, and I happened to be inside that ammunition depot when just about a third of the ammunition depot went up. Many of us were injured. A number passed away, a number died, but we continued. After that time, I received orders to my first actual assignment, which was the 1st Air Cavalry Division, B Company, 2nd and 12th Infantry in Song Bay and Phuoc Vinh, near Nui Bawa Mountain Range in South Vietnam. As a combat veteran, the Bronze Star Medal with 2 gold stars was awarded for actions against a hostile force. I credit my military experience with instilling resilience and teamwork skills that have benefited me throughout my life. Behind every salute in every branch, every time our nation stood up and readied its aim, the veteran answered that call. Yearning to uphold peace, the veteran in many cases remains silent. That silence can now be broken and amplified through the efforts of myself and other fellow veterans who have partnered in developing the veteran scene, which will be coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you. Go ahead, Chris. You're up.
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I'm Chris. I was going to full-time. I was going to college at night full-time and working full-time during the day. In 1968, I was 18 years old, and I came up with the brilliant idea that I was going to stop school. I was going to save my money, and I was going to go to Illinois full-time in the fall, and I got drafted a week later. So that was my introduction. Didn't really know what to do. I had an next-door neighbor that was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, and he caught me, and he explained the facts of life this way. He said, you're going to go to basic training, you're going to go to OCS, you're going to become an infantry second lieutenant, you're going to Vietnam, and you're going to die. And that got my attention right there. So he said, you're going to go down, you're going to apply for Warrant Officer Flight School right now. And I did it almost immediately. I think I did the same day. Went right down and went down to a crummy neighborhood in Chicago by Ogden and Lake. And I applied. And the guy basically hand carried me through, was going to be on a delayed enlistment. And a week later, they called me and said, you got to go. Mission is W1 and went to Vietnam 20 days later. I had no idea where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I had the ill-conceived notion I was going to fly VIPs and the U.S. mail when I got there. That was my dream job. And instead, my friend I went through flight school with, a very good friend, a close friend of mine. He and I ended up in a room in the Trang, and the guy said, called out everybody's name in the whole room. He looked at two of us, and he said, "You guys are going to the cab. Good luck." And he turned around and walked out. And we ended up in B Troop 717th Air Cab out of Pleiku. And when we got there, they told us, our CO told us, he said, "I want you to go down and meet everybody, the lift pilots, the gun pilots." He said, "I don't know that you really need to go down and see the scouts." And so we went over to the lift pilots, and they were nice fellas. And they told us, "You know, you come here, you're going to fly with us. Eventually you'll end up as pilot in command flying Hueys." And, but they said, no matter what you do, don't go see the scout pilots. Stay away from them. You don't want to go near those guys. And then we went to the gunship drivers, and they said the same thing. And they said, well, you'll be flying front seat. And if you're very lucky, you'll get to fly someday, maybe go through transition, and you'll fly Cobras, and you'll be like us, you know. So, and they said, no matter what you do when you leave here, don't go near the scouts. And we were living at the time, B Troop was living down on the beach on the South China Sea in a place called Fayette. And so he and I walked out of that meeting, and a guy comes running up to us in a Hawaiian shirt and short pants, introduced himself. His name was Dick Cross. He was a captain. He was a platoon leader for the scouts. He invited us in for a drink, and that we didn't remember a thing the next day until they were carrying our bags over the scout tent. They told us that we had signed up the night before. So at that point, I was just 20. I started flying scouts. We moved back up to Pleiku out of Fayette, and in August I was shot down out near Khartoum. What we did up there was we were unattached, and so we worked for the 4th Division. So we worked on the border. And I didn't really know what we did. Nobody would ever say what we did. And we ended up, what we did, it was interdiction and counterinsurgency. That was our job. So anyway, I was shot down in August of 69. The policy then was go over and drink until you could almost fall down, until you almost fell down. Then you go see the flight surgeon. And I was signed off to fly the next day because he asked how I felt, you know, and that was it. So I finished the rest of my tour. I flew the rest of my tour out, went down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I was instructing doing transition rides in OH-6s, which is a light observation helicopter with a 7.62 minigun and an observer with an M60 machine gun. In December, they called us in and they said, we have a deal for you guys. You go back to Vietnam right immediately, same job, probably same place, could be same unit, but you're going to go back to the same place no matter what, and or get out today. And I took to get out today. I had wanted to stay as a career. I was going to probably would have never made through a flight physical, a real physical, but I wanted to go to Ranger School. I had a recommendation for a direct, and I liked the idea of I wanted to stay in, but the thought of going back in when I was back in the States 5.5 months, I just wasn't not back long enough. I came out of a incredibly violent environment. That's what I ended up doing, and that was my experience in the military. After the military, I ended up got my life in order, and that's about all I can give you at this point. Is that good enough?
Yeah, 1966, I decided that I wanted to see what it was all about, so I enlisted in the Army. And through a what can I say, a set of circumstances, that some of which were beyond my control, I ended up in the Army Security Agency. And once I found out what they stood for, I was proud to be qualified enough to join the Army Security Agency. I was in school for a little over a year, and then I was sent to Japan for 2 years. And while in Japan, I went TDY a number of places in the Far East, the Orient, Okinawa, Taipei, Taiwan, Korea, South Korea, of course. And then they decided that they needed me in Vietnam, so I was assigned to the 507th in Phu Bai, South Vietnam, and even though I didn't spend a whole lot of time there, we were mostly out and about establishing intercept sites, which would ultimately be staffed by ARVNs. So our function was to install intercept sites in some of the fire bases. Well, not some of the fire bases, all of the fire bases that we could get to. And then that information, of course, collected and sent into headquarters, and from that, battle plans, etc., enemy strength, and all of that was the information that we were transmitting. There was a term that they applied to us lovingly, of course, and that term was spooks. They thought that what we were doing was that kind of situation. So I'm proud to, and I have to talk a little bit about the Army Security Agency. I'm not sure if any of you if you folks are familiar with it or have heard of it or whatever, but ultimately it was set up at the conclusion of World War II. The thought was the generals, et cetera, making the decisions, uh, needed boots on the ground as part of the intelligence gathering community, and that's when the Army Security Agency came to be, and we were pretty much worldwide. We had bases everywhere you can imagine, up way up in Alaska, like 50 miles from Russia, and places like that, all over the world, and we were all connected with one another and sharing information. So it was a unique organization that lasted well until I think they disbanded it in the late 70s. I don't remember the exact date, but then they shifted that responsibility to another agency, actually a combination in the military. So I really didn't quite fully understand the value of the jobs that we were performing as part of the Army Security Agency. Um, but the enemy certainly did. And because they knew that we had Operations Center in Phu Bai, as well as some of the fire bases, et cetera, they were primary targets. They really wanted us to be totally destroyed. So that was kind of exciting. One of the things that I was really proud of was I read a report. I did a deep dive on the Army Security Agency, and what I found out was the chief of staff during that period of time said that the Army Security Agency saved more lives than all of the armed forces put together. And I felt really, really proud for one of the first times since, I was in Vietnam. I felt that I didn't really understand quite fully what we were doing in terms of the overall scheme of things, and it was really nice to know that we had something to do with a success. So, anyway, that's it for me.
Yeah. My name is Frank. I spent 4 years in the Navy. I went into the Navy right out of high school. Vietnam War was heating up, and I wanted to obtain that GI Bill was my main motivation. But most of my family who'd ever served had served in the Navy or the Marines, so it was kind of in my background. Uh, I never made it over to Vietnam. Most of my service was cruising around either the Caribbean, but mostly over in the Mediterranean. I spent about a year on the USS Essex, which was an Essex class aircraft carrier. We were CVS, which was a submarine uh, uh, attack carrier. And then when I got off of the Essex, I went to A school, came out of A school. Originally, I went in for 6 years, signed up for 6 years because I was going to go to nuclear power school. I uh, went to A school when I got off of the Essex and got out of the 2 year additional obligation, got through A school and went to assigned to the USS Chicaskia, which was an oiler, an old World War II oiler. And we did pretty much the same thing that in peacetime that we would have done in wartime, was that we were out refueling the fleet. Like I said before, spent most of our time at sea. We were over in the Mediterranean, mostly serving the Sixth Fleet. I was a machinist mate down in the engine room. And during refueling, I was a ship-to-ship phones. And and then I went off to what they call lagging school. And I was the one person on the ship who repaired all of the lagging, which is the insulation around all of the steam lines on the ship. I had a completely different experience, I think, from all of the rest of my cohorts on this podcast, and that I never saw Vietnam. I never got to the Orient, and I saw a lot of the Mediterranean, and had one of those experiences where, like I said, I was trying to get my time in. I wanted to get my GI Bill so that I could go to school when I got out, which I did. When I got out, I'll speak briefly about what the VA has done for me. When I was discharged, honorable discharge in 1969, 4 years, I went to college. I spent my time in college. I got an accounting degree, went on and got a CPA. And then right out of college, I used the VA to get my first home. So I purchased my first home right out of college. And after that, I honestly kind of put the VA behind me. I didn't think much about I thought a lot about my service throughout my life. It was I cherished that time in the Navy, but I never gave much thought to VA benefits or anything beyond that. I lost contact with all of my old shipmates and I just went on and led my life until I guess recently, in the last 2 years, I became reacquainted with the Veterans Administration, neighbors, and good friend. I found that I had damage in my lungs from asbestos. And the only place that I could have gotten that was in the Navy because, like I said, I was a ship lagger and I worked every day up to my elbows with asbestos insulation. And they put me in touch with the VA. I went out there and signed up, got my VA ID card, and applied for benefits, and got some 60% disability from the VA for that. And since then, have been involved, and now I'm trying to get involved with this podcast. So that's kind of a brief history.
Hi, my name is Rod Ouano. Now, we've just listened to Mike Baker, Frank Donnelly, Lenny Maza, and Chris Olrich, and they all share their stories of how serving or after discharge from the U.S. military had an effect on all their lives. Myself included, we're all veterans who happened to serve during the Vietnam War era. Personally, I spent 18 months in Vietnam from February 1968 to August 1969, arriving in country just a few days into what they call the 1968 Tet Offensive. I just want to share what I witnessed and realized from what I remember boarding a transport plane en route to my first duty assignment as a construction surveyor with the 544th Engineers Battalion based at Cam Bay. And en route to Cam, our plane made stops at outposts in Pleiku and An Khe, to either drop off replacements or pick up soldiers who were headed home. Now, what struck me the most was watching expressions of relief on some of the faces of the men rushing into the transport plane. I remembered hearing a muffled comment from one of the GIs next to me as he kept repeating, come on, let's get this puppy off the ground. I remembered him very vividly because during that liftoff in Ankei, several mortars were hitting the airfield runway as we were taking off. Now, I also remember saying to myself at that moment, wow, only 364 more days left to go. In behalf of Mike, Frank, Lenny, Chris, and our tech, Sid Passy, myself, we invite all of you to join us and other veterans who will share both their military or post-military experiences and tell how it affected their lives and their military service benefits they received, or discuss difficulties of not receiving certain military entitled benefits. We'll also hear from organizations that support veterans or assist veteran causes like healthcare and housing. We invite all of you to join us soon for Veteran Scene from Las Vegas, Nevada.